Hi there, this is Dan Hood, your instructor for Photoshop Basics, and in today's lesson we're going to be using Adobe Photoshop Elements Editor, and we're going to be talking about selection tools, the different types of selection tools and what each selection tool does, and how to use them to get the most out of your cut and paste jobs. Let's say you have two images and you want to cut and paste in between the two to merge the two images into one composite image. We will go over that and see how that is accomplished. So the first thing we'll do, and we're in Adobe Photoshop Elements Editor, the first thing we'll do is that we're going to go and we're going to open a couple of images that are available on the online class. On the left hand side of the menu there will be a link that says sample images, I believe, and you can go there and you can download these exact same images if you wish to follow along. So we're going to go to File, Open, and we're going to open this image file here that is Cowboy JPEG. We'll open that, and then we'll go to Open, and we're also going to open this image, Desert JPEG. Okay, so as you can see here, we have one tab that has the Cowboy JPEG, and then a tab here that has Desert JPEG. So what we're going to accomplish here is we're going to take this image of the cowboy, we're going to cut out, by using the selection tools, we're going to select the background, then we're going to use that selection to turn it around and then select the cowboy, cut him out of his background, and place him in this desert. So he will be in front of this desert background once we're finished. So anyway, to accomplish that, we'll go back to the cowboy JPEG image. And first thing we're going to do is that I'm going to go over the different selection tools and give you a quick rundown of what each is capable of doing. So here you have the different selection tools are in your tool box on the left hand side, and they're toward the top. Here is the one that looks like the square, and if I stay on it, you can see that it's called the rectangular marquee tool. Now if I click it and hold it down, you can see that it'll pop out, and then there's the rectangular marquee tool and the elliptical marquee tool. They do the exact same thing, except one, when you place it onto your image or use it to place the marquee tool on your image, one comes up as a square or a rectangle, and the other one comes up as an elliptical shape or a circle. So that is two of the selection tools. Here you have another selection tool called the lasso tool. And the lasso tool, there are different varieties of lasso tools. This lasso tool here, which is the basic lasso tool, is like a freehand selection tool. So if I were to click that, select it, and then draw with it on the image, as you can see, it comes up being a freehand selection. Now if you click it and hold it down, it is a freehand selection lasso tool, magnetic lasso tool, and polygon lasso tool. And I'll go over what each of those mean. So as I said, the lasso tool is a freehand lasso tool. Magnetic lasso tool is special in the fact that the selection acts as a magnet to pixels that are different from a pixel next to it. So let's zoom in on the image a little bit. We'll scroll up to a couple of pixels that are different contrast to each other. Now if I'm to use this magnetic lasso tool and go down the side of the differentiating pixel colors, you'll see that it kind of hugs the side of the hat. and if I stray from it, it always wants to find the edge. So that's where you would use that. Comes in very handy. So that's the magnetic lasso tool. And then the polygon lasso tool basically is a lasso tool where you can draw with it, but you draw with it on hard edges. And you can actually draw a polygon with it. And then once you finish it off, it is a polygon selection. So that's the lasso tool. The other selection tools you have is the magic wand tool. What the magic wand tool does is that by use of mathematical algorithms between differentiating colors of pixels, it figures out a specific color of pixel to target and tries to select everything within that target range. So by using the magic wand tool, say in this area back here that has the kind of light beige background up against the black of his hat and his jacket, of this cowboy's jacket and hat, if I were to click in there, as you can see, it has targeted a certain set of colored pixels and has only selected that range of colored pixels. So that's how you use the magic wand tool. Now the last set of selection tools you have is the quick selection tool. You have the quick selection tool and the selection brush tool. Kind of the similar ideas, but the way that you use to point or to select with them is a little different. The quick selection tool is basically a tool where you can control the size of your selection, and what it does is exactly what the name implies, is that you can use it to quickly select areas. So like if I were to go in here and I wanted to select the light background from the cowboy, if I were to go along the edge, and you see how it tries to quickly, through its Photoshop magic, decide what is the background. That's its main purpose, is it tries to quickly decide for you what is the background, so you can quickly make selections between the foregrounds and the backgrounds. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It works fairly well, but you do have to kind of go back and clean it up, and we'll go into that. Now the brush is very similar, but it uses more of a brush type tool to accomplish that. So if I were to come up here in this corner and use the quick selection brush, it does it more of in a brush fashion, as you can see. Okay, so now I've gone through all of the selection brushes, the selection tools, to show you how they work. The next portion, we will actually use our selection tools to select areas such as the background or the foreground and place them into another image. Alright, so we're back with Adobe Photoshop Elements, and we're talking about the selection tools and how to use them in making a composite image out of two images. So we have open this image of a cowboy and this image of a desert, and what we're going to accomplish is selecting the cowboy and cutting him out of his background and placing him onto this desert background. So the way we'll start is we will first use the tool that I suggest to use first to start a project like this is the quick selection tool. We used that a second ago, and basically to reiterate what it does is that the quick selection tool does exactly as it says. It quickly selects images. It uses its powerful mathematical programs to figure out what the difference between the backgrounds and foregrounds of an image are, and then tries to select just the background or the foreground to help you in what you're trying to accomplish. In this case, pull out or cut out a background or foreground. So to use the quick selection tool, just select it, and really all you have to do is just kind of click inside a certain area and start clicking near the different colors of the background and foreground. In this case, the background is a kind of a beige color, a tan color, and then the cowboy is mostly black. So as you can see, I can quickly select between the two difference in contrasting colors of the image. Okay, so now as you can see, I've been able to choose the background. Now the one thing that we're going to have to do is we have to zoom in to make sure that we really have selected all of the background between the cowboy and the background, because this is very important to make a clean cut. So as you can see, as I zoom in, if your selection are what I like to call the marching ants is not all the way up to the edge of your image here, to the image edge, or isn't really making a very clean cut between, say, the foreground image, in this case the black of the hat, and the background tan area, which it's doing a pretty good job, then you will have to clean that up. But it's doing a pretty good job of making a clean cut. But let's say for some reason we wanted to clean this up just a little bit more here. Well, the way that you would do that is that you would go here to your lasso tool. You can either use the straight lasso tool and make a freehand selection, or use the magnetic lasso tool to help your selection along. So in this case, I'm going to use the lasso tool to clean up my selection a little bit. Now, what I want to accomplish here is that, see how this area right here, there's a little piece of this corner that I would like to include into my selection. So to do that, I'm going to now notice very carefully, right now it just has a selection or a pointer that looks like a little lasso. If I hold down the shift key, a plus comes up next to the lasso. What that means is that if I select something else, it is going to add it to the selection I've already made. So as you see, if I hold down the plus, come over here, and then by holding and clicking the mouse and just drawing what I want to add to my already selected area, it does that. Let's say I wanted to add a big area here. If I hold down the shift key, the plus sign comes up next to the lasso, and then I can just draw freehand what I want to add. As you can see, it adds this huge area here. Now, let's say that I don't want this to be part of my selection. So the way to accomplish that is to hold down the Alt key in Windows or the Option keys on a Mac. And as you can see, a small minus sign comes up next to the lasso. With Shift, it's plus. Option or Alt, it is minus. Now by holding down the minus key and then drawing over this piece of selection that I don't want to include, it is going to fill this area back in. And let me demonstrate. So I'm going to just freehand draw down the edge between the black hat and the tan background. Okay, so I've made that part of my selection or drawing. Now I'm going to encompass it by drawing around the full length of the selection that I want to erase. I've done that. I've come back to the beginning point, and now I will release my mouse button, and that will finish it off. And now, as you can see, has filled in the area that I wanted to fill in. So now let's zoom out again. And now we're back to where we have all of our pieces filled in. Okay, so the next step in this process is to, as you can see, we have the background selected, but what we really want to do is that we want to get it to a point to where the image, the black hat, his face, his jacket, we want to select that part of this image, because we're going to select that part, cut it out, and then paste it into this desert image. So to accomplish that, you would go up to your menu bar at the very top, your main menu bar, go to Select, and there's a handy feature here called Inverse. And what that does is exactly as the name implies, it will inverse your selection from what you have selected to everything that is not selected. So if I'm to go ahead and press the inverse, it has done just that. Now everything, as you can see, everything that was selected is now not selected, and now the cowboy image, the image of the cowboy himself, is selected. Okay, as you can see here, we have the image of the cowboy selected, and now we're going to take his image. As you can see, if I pull it away, it is cut out of the background. We're going to take his image using the Move tool up here, and as I showed before, we have a tab open that has the cowboy image, which we're looking at now, and then we have a tab of the desert image that's right next to it. So what we can do is that we have this cut out. All you have to do is simply take it and drag it up to the tab of the desert, and it will automatically switch to the desert image. And as you can see with this gray bar, I have the image of the cowboy in here. If I release my mouse button, it then places that cutout image of the cowboy into the background of the desert. So let's zoom out just once so you can get a better look of what we're seeing. So I've placed him in there, but now I'm going to move him down just a little bit so he fits better into our image. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take him, and I'm going to decide where to place him. I think I'm going to place him all the way over to the... No, let's go ahead and place him over to the corner like this. If you get to the edge of something, it automatically wants to snap to that edge, which is kind of nice, because then there's less guesswork about if you're to the edge of an image. As I get closer, see how it snaps there? That's great. So we're going to let it snap right there into place. We have pulled it over. Now let's double click to make that image set where it's supposed to be. Okay, so now we've been able to place him in front of another image, but the problem that we're having now is that since the image of the cowboy isn't a full image, like say, you know, his hat and his shoulder cuts off here, it doesn't look right. So to fix that, what we're going to do is that now we're going to come over and we're going to use the crop tool. The crop tool is next to the horizontal type tool, as you can see here, and then over here is the crop tool. So we're going to select the crop tool, Now to use the crop tool, you start at the top left of what you want to crop. Click the button, hold it down, and a selection comes up, and you hold it down until you get to the point to where you want to select to where you want to crop your image. So that's exactly where I want to crop it, because as you can see it goes right to the edge of the cowboy's hat and his shoulder. Now I'm going to release the mouse button. It brings up this grid showing you where it's going to crop. Down here you have the check mark and the don't sign. So in this case I want to apply it, which is the green check mark. So I'm going to, it says commit current operation, and I'm going to commit to that. So now it has cropped down to a selection that I want to select and to crop to. As you can see that we've now brought in this image and cut him out and put him in this desert background. And so the very last part of our lesson will be about how to clean up your selections around the edges to make them a little bit more realistic looking. As you can see, as I zoom in, especially around his hat, you can see that there is just a small white line around some of the edges that just doesn't really look very good. When it's up against a blue, a light sky or something like that, you really can't notice them. But once you go up and you look around edges that have a dark edge to them, you see there's a little bit of a white line, a highlight there that just really doesn't look natural when you bring your image to 100%, and it just looks a little unnatural. So an easy way to clean that up is very simply zooming in is a very important part of it, because to really get the crisp line you need to get in closer to really clean this up right. And really simply the easiest way to do it is to use your eraser tool here and make sure that you're using a brush as opposed to a block. 13 pixels is good, because when you bring it down to the image area, you'll see how large your brush size is. But I have it set on 13 right now, and that's pretty good. Make sure your opacity is all the way up to 100, and really simply, just very carefully. Oops, I'm sorry, I was on the wrong layer. That's another thing. Make sure you're on the right layer. I was on the background layer here, the desert background. Switch over to your layer 1, the cowboy. Now, just simply use your eraser tool and just kind of clean up the edges a little bit. Now, a little tip here to get a little bit more control over your eraser tool is what you can do. You can start at one point that you want to erase, click it, and then hold your Shift key down, and that's either Mac or PC, it doesn't matter, and then move a little farther up the line that you want to erase. And what it's going to do is it's going to erase from point A to point B, basically, as I am going to show you here. See how it just did that? It started here erasing, and then it erased up to here. Now don't go too far down the line, because you'll have too straight of a line, and as we know in reality and in nature, that nothing really is a straight line. So you really want to follow the natural curve of whatever you're trying to erase. So just keep continuing to hold down your Shift key, and you can just kind of go right down the side of whatever the white line of the image you're trying to erase. And see, that's just a very easy, subtle way to clean up any line. So now once I zoom out, Still a little bit there, so let's zoom back in and we'll take care of that. I think I still saw it. It was still pretty evident right here, so I'm going to clean that up just a little better. Okay, so now as I zoom back out, you'll notice that that white is gone, and it's really, especially compare this here to over to the right side of his hat, and there's still that white line. You can see that just by simply removing that kind of that white aura around whatever object you're trying to clean up, that's usually all you'll have to do. So that is really the final touches to taking an object, cutting it out, and placing it into a different background. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching.